Welcome to the Life Coaching Podcast, your go-to source for inspiration, transformation, and actionable insights. I am your host, Angel Gonzalez, and I am thrilled to have you on this journey towards personal excellence and empowerment. In each episode, I dive deep into the realms of life coaching, wealth creation, and personal development, sharing transformational stories from individuals who have achieved significant breakthroughs in their lives. Whether you are aiming to redefine your career, improve your relationships, or discover your true passions, this podcast is your partner in unlocking your full potential. Join me every week to hear from thought leaders, experts, and everyday heroes who share their practical strategies and heartfelt stories of success. If you are ready to unleash your potential, let's get started. Hello, everyone. I am Angel Gonzalez, and this is the Life Coaching Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure to share a stage with Maggie Boillot. Maggie is a self-development and mindset mentor, speaker, and podcaster as well, with a passion for inspiring people to reclaim their lives and rewrite their own stories. Through her guidance, she helps individuals live authentically, align with their true self, and arrive at a level of happiness and fulfillment that they never thought it was possible. Maggie, thank you for coming today to the Life Coaching Podcast.
Yes, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to kind of dive into the how, the why, the what, and whatever else you have to question me on. I'm so excited because this is absolutely what I'm so passionate about helping people do, is live that passion-filled, just life that you can't stop thinking about. So I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
That's amazing, Maggie. Thank you very much for coming today. And I would like to start this episode sharing a bit about your story. You are a woman who empowers women. You are a woman who creates a space for women to feel secure and rewrite their own stories. But I want to know what happened in your life. What is the story that you have to share with this audience in order for them to know how you can help them?
Yeah, so my story is very much unique to myself, but I always like to say and start off by how you can relate to everybody's story. And I think that there's so many similarities into my story and other people's stories that once you start to realize you're not the only person going through most of what life has to throw at every single one of us, that's where you can find the true alignment. That's where you can find yourself in other people's stories and be able to really step into your own authentic journey. And so my story is kind of a long decade worth of lies, toxicity, manipulation, deceit. I could kind of go on and on and on about the things that I was allowing in my life for a decade. And what truly was going on is that deep down inside, I wasn't fully accepting who I truly was and what I really wanted out of my life. And so when you can kind of look at your past as it's not defining you, it's actually refining you into the person that you're meant to be. As long as you're aware of it and able to understand the why or the how or the what is going on. And I think it's very important. So my story has so many layers. I don't know if you want me to dive into all those right now, but that's kind of where the story began is that I had to understand it was time for me to start living a life full of passion, purpose, and fulfillment. And each and every one of us deserves that. We just have to have the trust and the unknown and being able to rewrite that story. My mentoring and coaching and guidance comes from true experience. And I think that that's where I like to call my uniqueness, because I do feel like I went through a decade long of trying to reclaim my own power and rewrite my own story. And so I have so many tips and tricks for so many people about how it is possible to go from thinking you have the life that you're living and you're living this life and it's not really feeling so great, to being able to trust yourself enough, trust the unknown, make a courageous step and start over. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't know how to start over. I don't want to start over. I don't know. And it starts to get a little kind of like that resistance. But I'm here to tell you that every single one of us has the power within us to make the switch, if it doesn't feel like your life is authentic, doesn't feel like you're aligned, it doesn't feel like you're living in passion and in purpose, then you need to make sure you become more aware in your own life and how you can start turning the blank page and rewriting your own story. And so I think there's so many layers to my decade-long experience of being in a very toxic relationship. And when I say toxic, I think a lot of people get like, well, what does that truly mean? And we can dive into that more too if we need to. But I think for me, it just felt like it was lots and lots and lots of not so great moments in my life. And it was really happening for me to realize this was not the path that I was supposed to take. And so I think a lot of us can relate to each and every one of everybody else's stories because they're uniquely our own, but there's so many similarities in people. And once you start talking about them, you realize you're not alone.
Yeah, that's happening too often. The reality is that when we are in toxic relationships or relationships that doesn't work, the best decision that we can make is understand that the relationship needs to stop. That if you really want to come and decide to take ownership of your own life, you want to separate yourself from that relationship, from that issue that is happening there, so you can start building that persona that you really want to be, that you really deserve to be. And living a fulfilled life, a happy life is important. So is that how you start creating this person, this Maggie Boillot, who manifests happiness and empowering woman everywhere? Is that how you actually crack the shell and allow yourself to come into life?
Yeah, I think through every life experience, we have a choice to decide whether it's going to be something we can fuel other people with, or we kind of keep it to ourselves. And so for me, yes, this was like a cracking of the code where I had to really realize that my past wasn't really what defined me. It was what refined me into the person that I am today, and who I'm able to, or how I'm able to stand in front of an audience, how I'm able to, chat on my Instagram page and make the content for women. And I'm branching out too, not just only with women, because I think that every single one of us is starting to kind of realize we don't have to we don't have to behave, we don't have to act, we don't have to do certain things that maybe even society said we should, or our parents said we should. And I think there's a lot of kind of rebirth right now of what does light you up on fire. And so for me, this is what lights me up. This is what makes me want to get out of bed each day and share my story in hopes that I can impact other people along the journey that are just saying, enough is enough. I want to live happier, healthier, more motivated, more inspired. And so, yes, that is the whole premise of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it is because I suffered for so long in silence, and I suffered in a way that I don't think that we need to do anymore. There's so many people who are willing to mentor you and guide you and help you through the process. I always call us, we're kind of like the gap, the bridge. we're bridging that gap for you. We suffered for long enough that we want to help you not suffer as long as we did. So that's exactly why I'm out here sharing my story.
That's wonderful, Maggie. And I think that more and more people nowadays benefit from this sort of help. And there is more and more people just understanding that they need that help, that they need someone, a guidance, a supporter who can actually help them to see those blind spots that we all have in life. And it's hard for us to identify. I used to say all the time that I was a self-aware person, and I am a self-aware person. I started looking at my own life early when I was a kid. The reality is that without even noticing, I also fall into the pattern of a toxic relationship along my life. A relationship that at a certain point I had to end, but it's the type of relationship that drags the energy down, and we don't want to allow that in our lives. We want to create those moments of happiness. I believe that life is about every single moment that you are able to experience, and we are responsible for the moments of happiness and the moments of unhappiness that we allow in our lives. For the people that it's part of this audience, I would like you to please share what is your secret or three good secrets that people can start applying in their own life in order to realize how can they start creating these moments of happiness and start realizing where they really want to be.
Yeah, so I love that you said three things. So I have three words that I really like to focus on, and I'll dive into one of them. But the three things that I like to talk about is if you aren't aware, you're not going to feel alive. And if you aren't alive, you will not be in your own power. And so what I mean by that is that there's simplicity to the why and the how of like, how can I start living a more fulfilling life? How can I get out of the toxic relationship? How can I start working out again? There's so many things that are here, but it starts with the first word, and that's aware. And I love to talk about aware because, like you mentioned, you're self-aware. I was self-aware, but I think through experiences and through things in our life, we tend to put the blinders on. We turn the blanket, like you said, the blind spots kind of start happening. And so I have this really cool technique of, if you need to become more aware of what is happening in your life, you really truly have to acknowledge. And most people aren't okay with acknowledging. And you have to acknowledge if it's you're in the right, you're in the wrong, you're good, you're bad, all the things. You have to be able to take the accountability for where you're at in your life. We don't want to put blame on other things, because that just makes it toxic. And so I think most of the time, if you can be aware, but you have to acknowledge, where do you fit in the puzzle? And then once you feel like you can acknowledge where you're at, you have to have the willingness to change. You have to have the willingness to say, I don't want this anymore. And then once you have the willingness, you have to align with new things. Once you then align with the new things, you can then release what no longer serves you. And then you can start to experience something else. So that's my little aware. It literally is just spelled out right for you. But as long as you are staying stuck and in the same patterns of life, it means you're not aware. And so that simple technique is how you can literally, in any sort of situation, every single day, look at it and say, am I being aware? Am I acknowledging the fact that I have a part in the puzzle? Having the willingness to say, okay, whoa, I accept whatever is happening. And then choose the new alignment. Choose the new situation. Choose the new experience. It goes with even your thoughts and your emotions each day. Because like you mentioned, Angel, you thought you were a self-aware person, but you wound up in a toxic relationship. Doesn't mean that we're not going to always be aware, but it's just a simple way to say to yourself, man, every experience is feedback. So if you don't like it, you have to then align and just be willing to be able to say, okay, I I don't like what's happening and I want to change it. And that's it. It really is as simple as that. I mean, we tend to hang on to things that we don't like a heck of a lot more than we turn to things that we don't even know could be the life-changing experience.
That's right, Maggie. This drives me to a question because, as I said, as me, many men as well as women end up in relationships, and not necessarily need to be a loving relationship. That's the most common, the ones that we associate with pain, because it usually touches our fever in a deep level, because you trust someone to share your life with someone, to share your emotions with someone. And that's why loving relationship results into a more painful relationship when it turns into something toxic. Now, it also can apply to friendships. It also can apply to working relationships, etc., etc. But what's happening is that most of the time, people, they get aware about what's happening around. They understand that something is going on there that doesn't click with them, but there are issues associated also with their own identity, because the reality is that we become the average of the 5 people that we spend most of the time with. And if you are, for example, 20 years in a workplace that you know that you hate, but you don't know how to do it because that's how to change it, because that's becomes your identity. If you change that role, you lose part of your identity. If you get out of the marriage that being on for 20 years, you are losing not just the relationship with that person, but your identity as well, because that's part of the role that you are playing in the relationship. You might be aware about something is wrong, something is not right, it doesn't click with you at all, but it's also become your identity. And that's exactly the part where people stop just looking at, hey, this relationship is toxic. I just need to understand that I have to acknowledge this, and this is not happening anymore in my life. I need to do something different. And sometimes that's the reason why people don't stop those type of issues, behaviors, and habits that deplete themselves into a relationship. Also, those type of things trigger fears in people, because it's the fear of living, it's the fear of the unknown. I want to know from your own experience, from your own story, did you experience that fear? How did you get to the point to say, this is not working, I really need to make a change, I need to get out of this relationship and start creating this new Maggie? But also with the people that you work, what are the experiences of the people that you are impacting every single day, that you are touching every single day, those souls that you are helping to turn into something better, into a free soul, making sure that they can start living their own life by their own terms? How do you find that in this particular moment of your life?
Yeah, so I loved how you were talking about identity and things too that don't always just have to resonate through a relationship. And so for me, I had both levels. I had a relationship and an identity with a business. So I had two real separate situations. And so when you talked about the unknown and how did that kind of come about, for me, that is one of the reasons why I stayed stuck and unfulfilled in one aspect of my life, because I had an identity to my business where I thought, if I don't have this business, who am I? And so I think we tend to ask that question about, if I don't have my kids, who am I? If I don't have this job that I thought was my dream job, who am I? And really deep down inside, I think that we need to understand that when you're in those situations and you know for a fact that you've had I call it the call, have you gotten the call to say like, hey, this isn't feeling good? And I know I got that call over and over and over in my life, and I hung up on that call. And so I think it's because of the unknown. It's because of the fear. And so when you ask that question, 100%, and I talk about that all the time, is that fear is never going to just disappear. But you have to understand that if through courage and strength and trust, the unknown seems very unfamiliar, but it's also the place where most of the magic is going to happen. Because if you think about what you're staying stuck in, it's just familiar chaos. And our body starts to crave that, and the toxicity and the kind of the uncomfortability. And maybe it's comfortable, but it's really uncomfortable. And so if you think about it this way, the unknown really is uncomfortable, but it's also a place where you get to try new things and you get to experience something. And so I think that it takes courage and strength and trust. And those are another 3 words I love to use, because most oftentimes when we're in a relationship or a situation or an experience where we've lost one or all of those, like I did, it's really hard to take the step and say, I want different. And so I encourage anybody listening that has ever had the call that I talk about is to just trust. Trust that there's a reason and a blessing behind the redirect, because most oftentimes the redirects are there to guide us to the most aligned path. And most oftentimes we tend to think, why is this happening? Why does this keep happening? And we stay in that vicious cycle instead of seeing the beauty is in the redirect. The beauty is in the realignment that is happening for you. And I believe that that's one of the biggest things that people can take from this episode is when you have a situation in your life or an experience, you have to see that there's a blessing behind it, sometimes it's really hard to see it in the very beginning. And trust me, I thought to myself, why? I did the whole thing. But once you can really pull yourself back and think about it, you can understand that most of the redirects have been there all the time. And it takes, like you had mentioned, it takes even like a really hard lesson. I've had a few of those in my life too, where it's like, okay, if you're not going to listen and if you're not going to see these redirects as actual beauty in disguise, then I'm going to keep throwing them your way. And I just believe that if you can open your eyes to understand that the beauty is in the redirects, the beauty is in that chaos.
That's wonderful. And I agree with you 100% on that statement. The beauty is out of the chaos and in the chaos of the unknown. Absolutely. It's that opportunity that we have to be courageous and just jump into, just take that moment of jump into the unknown and decide to flow with whatever is coming in order for us to build the best life that we can possibly build. And most of the time, or many times, people fear to that particular matter, to that particular moment in life, because we don't know how it's going to be. The odds are all against at some point, because we cannot have control over it. And releasing that control over our life could be assumed for people as something dangerous. We go back to the moments where we were living in caves and outside were the danger, and going outside of our comfort zone is dangerous because we don't know what can happen. There is all sort of issues that are happening outside that can influence our lives negatively as well. I reckon that's exactly where the fear is rooted, because it's also part of our inherited culture where we are not used to just take risks, because we see risks as something painful instead of seeing risks as opportunities that allow us to grow and create something new out of it. With this, I want to talk about the fact that many people, women and men, are in toxic relationships and are with narcissistic partners. This is something that more and more people are talking about nowadays. And getting out of those relationships results dangerous for that people, for the victims of this type of relationships, because there are many implications legally, things related to their own safety. How do you reckon that a person who is in this type of relationship can start taking small actions, small steps in order to create that path that may drive them out of that type of relationship and help them to have that courage, to build that courage in order to take that extra step, that additional step that can get them and guide them through a different path to create a life that they really want to live and experience?
Yeah, so it's one of those things for me. I like to back up because I actually, for a long time, I didn't really even realize I was in a narcissistic relationship. And so I think a lot of times I like to back that out of how do you even really know, or how can you understand it? And I think that a lot of times for me, narcissistic was somebody that, it's just the manipulation. It's the kind of the gaslighting and the feeling like you just really honestly are, you're the crazy person. And you're like, but how are all these other little lights going green, 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 like look over here. But yet every time it was over here, it was like, that's not true. Those people are crazy and you're crazy for it. And so I think that's where you kind of hit it. Like, how do you even get out of that? And I think even for me in my own situation, I honestly didn't know how. I really didn't. And even for my situation too, I was about 14 and a half years younger than my partner. And that was scary in itself, because I thought, well, how does this little me go and actually stand up to the big bad wolf, and say, like, enough is enough. I don't want to do this. And so I think that, I never was fearful for like my safety. It was more for me, it was like I was fearful that I would lose everything. And that was my thing is mine was more of a emotional and mental abuse of a relationship. And so I wasn't really ever fearful of the fact that I was leaving. It was more of, how the heck does someone like me walk up to somebody like that and say, I'm done. I'm done being the doormat. I'm done being the person that's being walked on. I'm done being the one that is, creating this beautiful business. I'm done being the one raising the family. Because there's another layer in that for me as I was raising stepkids. And so I think it's just one of those things where I don't know that I have the secret answer for like what it is, but I think it all stems back to just building some trust and strength in yourself, that even if you're in a relationship that is even more of a violent or abusive one, there's ways to be protected, and you need to find your safe place. You need to find the people that are going to help you and help you understand that, also too, I think you have to find the people that aren't there to judge. Because I think that's where it's like, you got to find people like we talked about in the beginning, mentoring, and people that are knowing where you're at to help you and guide you through it. So if you feel that you're fearful, you have to you got to get to a safe place. But you also, for me, it was more about how the heck can I build up enough courage to walk up to this person that I've been with for a decade, and knowing the manipulation and the toxicity that I had dealt with, be able to stand up and say, like, enough was enough. That was the hardest part, is to do that. And I think the only thing I can say is that it comes with the acknowledgement. It comes because I talked about that. I had to be acknowledged. I had to get to a point of acknowledging the fact that I was allowing this behavior. And so that was my puzzle piece there. So I think a lot of times in an abusive type of a relationship, you have to be the one to say, I'm the puzzle piece that's allowing this, and I'm choosing myself this time. I'm choosing my own fulfillment, my own passion, my own new identity shift. And I think that's the only thing I can really say to that. It was the scariest, most awfulest day, I think, in my life, but it ended up being the most rewarding one as well. So
congratulations. Yeah. Congratulations for that shift. Congratulations for taking the courage to walk away from it, acknowledge yourself and choosing yourself above any other issue, responsibility, or obligation that you have in that moment. Definitely it takes courage. It takes takes a lot of strength. It's building that strength, even sometimes from the frustration, to create that new path, to create that moment in which we decide to just turn ourselves and be free and declare and decide our own freedom. So congratulations, because this decision in that moment guided you to this moment that you are living today, to this moment of being an entrepreneur woman, to be a point of reference for many women out there who are living the same experience or similar experiences, and they don't know how to walk out. They don't know how to get out of that, and they don't know where to go after that, because I think that's the most important thing for many people when they decide just to take that step to the no. It's where do I go? Where do I find help? How I can start creating this new life that I don't know, because everything that I know is related to this person. Everything that I know is related to this job. Everything that I know is related to this circle, which is not giving me any value. On the contrary, it's taking away everything that I have, but I don't know how to do it. Now, it's important, and sometimes we don't realize that when we allow new people in our life and we start building a different circle, they also have influence over you. And sometimes that people that we bring in our life are the people that help you to see those blind spots. Of course, if you are in that situation, in that particular situation, there is a resistance created because it's the unknown. It's the thing that you don't understand. It's the thing that most people negate for a long time before just realizing, oh, this is what really is happening. But when we start nurturing new relationships, creating new relationships, that help people to start making those shifts, to start seeing those clues, those signals. And I'm curious, from your point of view as an expert in the area, in the field, and after helping many women to go out there and start taking ownership of their own life, what is the experience that you can see in when we allow other people to come into our circles and start nurturing new relationships, creating new relationships in order for us to just see something different, understand that life has much more to offer.
Yeah, I think it's a very important piece to the puzzle is to surround yourself with people that have either gone through a similar situation or are at a place in their life that you want to be. I know that I have tons of mentors. I have tons of people that I look up to, and I like to circle myself in their communities because you know that you're going to get the love and the support. And a lot of times, when you mentioned entrepreneurship, even, it's a lonely road when you're doing it. A solopreneur is one of the hardest things. And I think it's one of those things that's the biggest dream for a lot of people, but it is hard. It's tough. And so when you are switching your identity, you're changing, you want something different out of your life. Yes, it's so important to find mentors, people who have been where you are and have made it to the other side, and then surround yourself with those types of people. Because if you don't, you're gonna retreat back. You're going to say, oh my gosh, this is too hard. You're going to get the feedback of the exact thing that you're looking for. And I think a lot of us tend to paint the picture in our head. We paint the story, we write the story before it even happens. And so I think it's so important to think of it that way, that like, that's just how it's going to be if you continue to stay, like you said, the influence of the 5 people around you. You got to find 5 new people that are actually doing what you want to be doing. And then say to them, how did you do it? I want to learn from you. I want to grow with you, because I also want to speak to, I'm sure you are the same way, but me as a mentor, you're never behind me. You're right next to me, and I'm going to experience it with you, because I think that's what happens a lot of times is you can find maybe the wrong mentor too. And you feel like you're 100 million steps behind that person because it happened to them a while ago. But I love to meet people where they're at and say, hey, I need to know that feeling you're in right now, and I want to reference it to where I was in my journey. Because when you can find the people that go back with you in your journey and actually pick you up and hold you close and say, I know the feeling, I've been there before, and I want to do what I can do to bridge that gap. I think that's the most important part, is you have to really, truly find your alignment with the people that you want to look like, act like, be like. And we all know that Instagram can be one of those, I always reference Instagram because that's one of my bigger platforms, but we reference Instagrams and we see these people and it's like, oh, I want to be like her. I want to be like him. And I feel, when we get all these feels about it. And if you want to be that person, there's something in that person that is inside of you already. The reason why you're craving what they have is because it's already inside of you. That's why everything is my power within her, and the power is inside of you, because it's so true. The people that you want to be and aspire to be and you're looking up to, it's already inside of you. It's calling you, saying, this is what you want. These are the steps you have to take to get there, and align with yourself with a community of people that are there to support you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The part where anybody who is experiencing a difficult situation need to realize, hey, if this is calling me, if I am truly interested in becoming something like this, it's because it's already within me. I just need to tap into this. I just need to recognize that within me and understand that I can do it as well. Because it's not about just looking at, it's a far away idol that I cannot reach. It's unreachable. No, it's right there. It's right there within. And it's exactly what we call. So it's unleashing the power within. It's unleashing ourselves within. It's unleashing our decision of being wild and being free, because it's already there. But we need to allow that to happen. We need to allow that to be born. We need to allow that to come to life. And that's the most important part, when we realize in ourselves that this is happening, and we just need to give permission for it to happen. Because as well, if we allow other things happening around us that influence our life negatively, we also need to allow these things just to come out and start growing in ourselves, because it's who we really are. It's the version of ourselves that we want to experience. Otherwise, we will be happy being the victim of someone else, or being trapped in that trap. in that circle for the rest of our life. But definitely that's not happening. And that's why we start looking at opportunities. We start looking at options. And one of the things that I want to mention right now is the need to create an environment that fosters that opportunity. Because I was talking not so long ago with one specialist in neuroscience, he is also a psychiatrist, and we were talking about the importance of environment, because what's happening is when we start working with someone to help them to create those shifts, and their environment, the natural environment where we spend most of the time, is not in the disposition to create this shift, there are high opportunities to fail in that process. And that's the reason why we need to make sure that we are able to recreate that environment, to bring people with us and create this opportunity to start living that life in a different way, to start living that life that we want to create, to start imitating those behaviors and adopting those habits that help us to move towards that achievement. In your case, Maggie, when you work with your clients, how do you prepare them in order to have that environment, to create that scenario for them to have the possibility of getting that transition, of living that transition in a more easy way?
It all comes down to alignment. It's the same thing that we've talked about through the entire episode, is everybody is uniquely themselves. And I think that there's a lot of push out there that it's like, you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to, and there's, you journal, you meditate, you work, you do. And I think for me, I like to even say that as myself, as I'm not your average mentor, because I think it's all about aligning yourself what truly lights you up. Because what works for me, it probably won't work for you, but there's bits and pieces that you can use in your own journey, in your own life, that you're going to start to feel it. So it's all about, what does it feel like in your body? When somebody tells you, how are you feeling today? And how many times do you just go, I'm fine? And deep down inside, you're like, I'm not really fine. But why we tend to shy away from the actual feeling, because we're not in alignment with that full passion and that vibrancy that we want in our life. And so I think it really comes down to identifying what makes you the person that you are. What in your life can you go back to, even as a kid, that really brought you fulfillment? What brought you joy? And then do that. Because I think a lot of times we're like, well, we're adults. We can't just go play on the playground. Why not? We have things in our life that brought us pure joy back in the day. So why can't we then go and find them again and bring them into our life? Because then your body gets more used to the feeling of fulfillment and passion and joy, instead of I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm all right. And so I think it's just about what makes you who you are. What is it that you like? What is it that you value? And I'm one of those people that for a long time I was like, I don't really know. But even just a couple days ago, I was like, I really loved working out in a crowd. That was what my business was. It was a community. It was amazing. And I haven't been doing that. And I thought, why am I not doing it? So ask yourself those questions: is what does bring you the joy? Because what I like, you won't. What you like, I won't. And it's that type of a thing that you have to figure out for yourself. What is it that makes you unique? What is it makes you feel good? And then do more of that. It's that simple.
That's right. Now, one of the things, Maggie, that I was thinking about as well is when people just fall into the routine. Because we all have different routines. So you need to go to shopping, you need to go to your job, you need to go to the uni if you are a student. And those are part of the routine. So how do you manifest happiness within the routine? How do you live a happy and fulfilled life within the routine? Because when we do something extraordinary, yes, we create that moment. We experience it. We go on and beyond to have that experience. I'm going in a couple of weeks to a seminar in a different place in Queensland, and I am so excited for this, and I do every single day something that is associated with it, and I just think about this all the time. But that's the extraordinary. I'm not doing a retreat every single weekend, no? So every time that you do something extraordinary, that create that happiness. But for the people that is, living their life in their routine every single day, you wake up, need to do the breakfast, the lunch, go to the job, come back to your life, create a space for your family. How do you reckon that person, that family group, or that group of people can manifest that happiness and recreate that happiness and ignite that fire, as you said before, to live a more fulfilled and happy life?
I think it's about setting your own boundaries. I think that we tend to say we're so busy, but it's, I actually just said that in my podcast recording this morning, is woo busy. A lot of us tend to say we have this routine, we have this thing, we have this, we have that. I wake up, I do this, I do this, I do this, I come home, I do this, and I go to bed. And if you have that, that's called Groundhog Day. That's called the mundane. That's called something that you've labeled in your life. And that's when you have to become aware and work yourself through that same exact process and understand what doesn't feel good. What is the thing that I'm doing for someone else that I don't have to do? And now it's not about not raising your children. It's not about having, those kinds of things. It's about creating the space for yourself. And that's what I said about choosing yourself even. You have to say to yourself that you value yourself enough to add in, even if it's that you want to turn the music up in your car and blast it and sing because that's what gives you fulfillment, do more of that. Who cares who's watching on the sides, And so it's about creating the things in your life that do bring you the joy. So like I just mentioned, finding those things, but then putting them in little spots of your day. Because I think a lot of people think, I have to have this morning routine and I already wake up at 4 a.m. Okay, that's great. If you have to wake up at 4 a.m, what if I told you that instead of taking your cell phone to the restroom, you could have 5 minutes to yourself in the restroom to do your mindfulness activity? Or what if I told you that you could actually add in an activity of living in intention and setting intentions while you're in the shower? So people tend to say, I have this routine. Well, break the routine. Because if you have the routine and you ain't satisfied and you're not living in a fulfilled state of mind and having purpose, the routine has to be broken. And we're so afraid to just break the routine just a little bit. But I'm here to tell you that even if you added in 5 minutes of mindfulness, just even sitting with yourself instead of scrolling, doom scrolling, or doing certain things like that. I've even been practicing more about like when I'm cooking dinner or I'm eating dinner, like my phone isn't even in the same room. So there's certain things that you can do in your routine to start feeling more aligned with yourself, to start feeling more alive. Because remind yourself what I said in the very beginning is if you're not aware, you won't be alive. And if you're not alive, you're not in your power. So you have to think of it that way. And every time you're doing something, be like, am I aware? Okay, check. Am I feeling alive? Check. And then if it's like, I feel powerful and I feel strong, then you can understand you're in true alignment and things are going to start happening. The job opportunities are going to come. The new relationship is going to come. The new fulfilling lifestyle that you're looking for is going to come. But if you continue to say to yourself, I'm so busy, I don't know how to have that, that's an old belief pattern. That's a lie you've been telling yourself for long enough that it's become your truth. And so it takes one simple shift to be able to say, okay, I don't like this routine anymore. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. And it takes a little bit of practice and it takes a little bit of uncomfortableness. But when you want things to change, they have to change inside of you first. And that's just as plain and simple as it can get.
Yes, I agree with you 100% on that. And I will add to it dancing, because if you dance, if you like to dance, so you can dance in the shower, you can dance while you are cooking, you can dance 5 minutes just before sitting on your bed and going to sleep. And I was talking with my son not too long ago this week. We were talking about goals, how to create those goals that we want to achieve in our life. And I said to him, hey, buddy, just before going to sleep, put yourself in a good mood. Make sure that you are going to bed happy and think about those goals. So instead of those 5 minutes of mindfulness, just take intentionally work on the goals that you want to achieve. And just before going into the sleeping process. And he said, oh, yes, it's working for me much better now. So those type of things that you can incorporate in your routine, or as you say, break it and integrate something new into your routine that can help you to manifest every single day that thing that you want to experience. Absolutely. What do you think about purpose and passion, Maggie?
I think that purpose and passion are always inside of us as well. I think that we know what our purpose is. It's been throughout life. It's shown up, but most oftentimes we mute that noise. We mute it because we're like, well, that's not what my parents said, or that's not what this is. And so your purpose has always been in front of you. It's just through experiences we tend to just kind of like push them away and think, no, it's not meant for me. Oh, it's not, it's too hard to get there. And then, was the other one passion? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Passion. Passion comes from within as well. Passion is a choice. It's just like, if you want to be happy, you can be happy. If you want to be angry, you can be angry. And I'm not telling you that you don't have really good days or really bad days. But it's all about choice. It's about how long are you going to stay in that I don't have passion. I don't have this. Because what you resist persists. And I said that even in another episode this morning. And it's just interesting how it all just is so aligned right now. And it's, if you want passion in your life, go get it. If you want to have passion and purpose in your life, find it, believe in it, understand it, and embrace it, and try stuff out. Because I think that's we're all so afraid of the F word, the failure word, or the judgment word. And honestly, like, who cares what people think of you, and who cares if you fail? I'm the queen of failure, but I think it's what has made me into who I am. And I can really truly say that it's the stepping stones that I've had to have to make me the coach, the mentor, the podcaster, the speaker, all of the things in my life. If I hadn't failed, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so we tend to think of failure as like, but really failure is what's getting you to your passion, I believe.
That's a really good point of view, because if failure actually drives you to your passion, it's all right. I never see failure as a failing. I see failure as an opportunity to learn something, relearn something, and create a new path for myself and anybody who is in that moment around me or within me. I believe in that, and I practice that every single day. Now, Maggie, we are coming to the end of this episode, and I want to know, you recognize yourself as a happy woman. I want to know from you, from your experience, what are those 3 things that make Maggie happy?
So I do believe I'm a happy person. I definitely want to say that there's not always is never, it never is. I mean, if it was perfect, it would be boring. And if you were happy all the time, it'd be boring. You have to have the moments of sadness for clarity, I think. And so for me, the things that make me the most happiest is being able to inspire other people to live a passion-filled life after losing pretty much everything you knew of. And really, honestly, I love to dance. I love to sing in the shower, like I said, or in the car. And I think really, truly, it's just about being able to connect with people in such a unique way. And it's just awesome. So those are the things that just really light me up.
How can people find you and work with you?
So I am on Instagram, so powerwithinher.inc. And basically the way to get in touch with me is through that. I have a website. I love to speak at events. I love to mentor. And I also have a really cool community of women who are stepping into their power and rewriting their stories authentically. So best place to find me is through Instagram. And then my website and all the things are there as well. So I just have really enjoyed this conversation, and that's kind of where you can find me. And I love to connect, and please send me DMs and all the things as well, because I love to connect with people on a level of so.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Maggie, for coming today. I just want to drop a general question. Do you have a final thought that you want to share with the world from the Life Coaching Podcast?
So my final thought is, you are worthy, you are deserving, and you are more than enough to live the life that truly lights your soul on fire. So go after it.
She's Maggie Boillot. She's an empowered woman who empowers women to live a better, fulfilled, and happy life. Thank you very much for coming today to this episode. And I am Angel Gonzalez. This is the Life Coaching Podcast. Remember, I believe in you. I believe in your unlimited capacity to create the results that you want for your life, to experience a much better life. Thank you for tuning in to the Life Coaching Podcast. I hope that today's episode has empowered and inspired you to take bold steps towards your own personal and professional breakthroughs. If you found value in today's stories and insights, please share this episode with your friends and family, because your feedback fuels my mission to bring you even more impactful content. And next week, I will continue to explore the amazing potential within ourselves. Until then, keep striving, keep dreaming, and keep moving forward towards your best life. I am your host, Angel Gonzalez, and this is the Life Coaching Podcast.